They were pompous. They were standoffish. They seemed to not accept me. The bar was just right there. It's, 100 yards away, not even 100 yards. So I spent a lot of time there, and I'd go over now and then when I felt the need, and as you get older, you don't feel the need as much. The killing stopped for large periods of time. When I was younger, it was more often, but it was so easy. I knew where the parking lot was, and I'd pick out a single, someone who was there by herself. And you have to wonder why women come to a bar by themselves, and then they turn down a guy as, attractive and as amazing as me. I'd try to, get him to come over, and they'd deny me, especially after I bought him a drink. I mean, that was $10 wasted, Whew. I could have gone and eaten some fish tacos or something, with that $10, but no, I wasted it on them. So I knew how, things would go. And I had a garage right there in the alley, and I had a hammer. So I'd open the garage, and nobody was ever in our alley. It's kind of a strange situation. House across the street had been vacant for years. I think I was doing this for, I don't know, 5, 6 years, whatever. It was easy. Nobody was around. So that bay has a lot of bodies in it. I weighted them down, but I've watched all the shows, so I know how to make it so they don't gas up and start floating. You don't want women floating in the bay out there, people you murdered. So I'd take a big knife and I'd poke holes in all their major organs, and so the gas would escape, and that way, they didn't fill up with gas and start floating and around the boats, and people would go, oh, oh. So, I had several years there where, it was pretty easy. I mean, if I went over there and a woman was rude to me, I'd just stand out there in the alley. I actually had a chair. I'd sit there in the chair, beach chair. And then if she was walking home on the sidewalk, my side of the street, I mean, I know she's going, her car's got to be up there in the parking lot. There's no other place to park, right? Oh, especially the tourists, the snooty ones. So I just sit there in a chair, with my knife. And then when she came by, I'd grab her, and so a lot of them are noisy. I mean, these bitches are noisy. So you have to shut them up pretty quick. I mean, get your hand on their mouth, and so that works for a little bit. But man, they are too. Then the adrenaline kicks in, and they're hard to control. So you have to slit their throats. So I did some, it made a mess. It was just blood trail. Sometimes I could just break their necks, and that was a lot easier way, just fucking then get them into the garage and take their clothes off and fuck them. But other times I had to slit their throats. Some of them are pretty strong. They're athletes. A lot of these women that come down here, they're looking for another athlete because the neighborhood is famous for that. So, it was hard to, restrain some of them. So, that's what the knife was for. And I just slit their throats. And, but it was a mess. I dragged the body into the garage and closed the garage, and then I had to go out, and take the 200-foot hose and spray everything down, so there wasn't a blood trail leading into my garage. Oh, then I'd come back and then I'd fuck them. Sometimes I'd keep them for, 2-3 days and fuck them a lot. But a lot of them weren't, really, especially hygienic. I mean, some of these women probably, I don't know, would, it was already a smell when they showed up. So, some of them were pretty clean, though, and, those are the ones you keep. The clean ones. You can tell that they've been taking care of themselves really well and showering very often. Oh, and there was no vagina rot or anything like that. Some of them had vagina rot. And that's something you don't want to see. So it was a mixed bag. How'd you get one? Sometimes you could put up with the smell for a few hours. You had to dice up the body. I had saws. I had lots of saws. The bandsaw was really effective, but it's hard to get them up there. So you got to chop them up somewhat before you take the parts and, cut them up with a bandsaw and then put them in those plastic bags with the rocks and poke the holes and everything. So took a while. Sometimes, sometimes I thought, man, this isn't worth it. I mean, I only got a few hours out of her. She started to smell already, and then I gotta cut her up and throw her in the bay. I mean, this is work, and I'm starting to spend too much money on plastic bags and rocks. Well, not rocks. I go to Home Depot and I get bricks, but and then the knife. I already have the knife, so that's easy. Just you stab them, stab them again, stab them again. You got to stab them in the right places so the gas comes out. And then you have to remember that the flesh, once it starts deteriorating, it will swell, and so a lot of those stabs will they'll close up. It's not like it's healing or anything, but they'll close up, and then the gas won't escape. And so there's an art to it. It took me a while to learn it. I mean, I did see a couple of bodies were floating, and I had to go swim out there and re-stab. But I learned, when you knife them, you have to twist. If you twist in like a full 180 degrees, then then the swelling doesn't do much. You can swell as much as it wants. I mean, when the gas still escapes and they still they sink. So it's a pretty good system I got going now. Well, I stopped. Somebody went snorkeling in the bay and saw a bunch of plastic bags, and of course they were curious, so they opened one of them. They brought one up on shore. They opened. Oh, look at that! So I stopped. I mean, the heat is on, and everybody's wondering how all those women got, into plastic bags and small pieces and in the bay. Just really, it was just off my court. I didn't feel like I needed to take them anywhere special. They're at the bottom of the bay. It's the water's not that clear. It's kind of oily because of all the boats. And I figured, well, hell, how could anybody ever find this? So I just, take them out there at night, to bag by bag, dump them. And oh, man, it was the best of times, whew. I had access to all these women, and I especially like to dice them up, if they've been rude to you. I take special care of those ones. Yeah, if they were just rude, unnecessarily mean to me, I'd dice them up while they were still alive. First I'd cut off their toes. And of course, I had to gag them. I had to put some duct tape around their mouths, and that's so. That's the only reason there's duct tape found out there. It's because the mean ones. I mean, otherwise I just, whew, uh, I wouldn't have had to do that. There were some nice ones. They were courteous, and so I didn't feel they deserved duct tape mouths, and I just kill them, and then fuck them. So that's all over now, though. I got kicked out. My place was bought by a developer, and now I'm living in a new neighborhood, and we don't have an ocean here. We don't even have a lake or a pond or anything that I could, dump dead women in. And all my saws, I gave all that stuff away to friends, so I'd have to do it manually with like a steak knife or something. That'd take forever. That's too much work. And then the mess. And now I have roommates too, so I'm just renting a room here. It's not my own place. So it'd be more complicated here, and I don't know what do you do with the remains? I guess the other solution is you chop them up into really small parts, and then you just flush them down the toilet. I've heard of guys that do that. So I guess that's one way to go about it. But God, it seems like too much work, and then you really can't fuck them here. It makes too much noise if they're alive, and even when they're dead, they still kind of, some gas comes out of their mouth, and they make some weird sounds, Oof, yeah, oh, and I suppose somebody might hear that sometime, and then what am I gonna do? They're starting to knock on my door and say, "What's going on in there? What's happening in there?" Now, how am I gonna explain that? Well, I'm having, and so I thought about this a lot, and I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and, people are so easily shocked. So I would just tell them, well, I was masturbating, and I make those sounds when I masturbate. His life is much more complicated out here, but at least, don't have to bury it. Well, not bury it. I don't think it's burying, right? When you just dump them in the bay. So there's, that makes it easier. I got more time to do other stuff instead of, murdering and cutting up women into small pieces and putting them in plastic bags and all that. So, in fact, the problem is, I was doing that for so long, I got out of the practice to do another thing. Now I don't know what to do, and I can't run anymore. My leg hurts. Oh, and swimming, I guess I could go swimming, but man, the beach is so far away, back where all the other plastic bags are. So I don't know what, life's become fairly complicated. I'm going to have to get a new hobby. Really don't have any idea what it is, but any of you out there listening, you get, some suggestions for a new hobby. I'm going to put this on YouTube, and so you can suggest, instead of, murdering women and cutting them up into little pieces, it's got to be something else. And swimming. I used to swim. Yeah, I'd swim right over the plastic bags. I could see them, but nobody else could see them. And now in the pond and lakes and all that. Anyway, it'd be much appreciated if you came up with some suggestions for what I can do with my free time. I got so much of it now. Well, that's all I got to say.